Hi, everybody, and welcome to Tzfat. Welcome to Live Kabbalah's page, Daily Zohar, where every day we hope to send out short videos on a portion of the Zohar of the day. So yesterday we just completed Chanukah, the Chanukah celebration holiday, where we lit the candles for 8 days. And candles have a particularly important significance in Kabbalistic thought, and I'd like to focus this class particularly on the mysticism, on the secrets behind the candles, and hopefully that will be built up in the next couple of lessons. So here we go. This particular lesson comes from Parshat Bereshit, from the Torah portion of Genesis, towards the end of the Torah portion, and the context of where we're going to be, of where the Zohar talks about the candle, is the follows. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who, by the way, I merit to sit across from. That's the view right here from my home. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai went to Tiberias, went to Deveria with his students, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Chia. And as they were walking, they saw Rabbi Pinchas. They saw Rabbi Pinchas, who was the father-in-law of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And as soon as Rabbi Pinchas saw his son-in-law, his illustrious son-in-law, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he said, "Please, let's pause over here all together and have a siesta of Torah learning, of hearing deep thoughts from Rabbi Shimon." So Rabbi Shimon delves into some very, very deep thoughts, and at a certain point, he delves into the secret of the candle. So here we go. Tachazi, come and see. And the Zohar always speaks with the word see, because the Zohar actually gives us the imagery of spiritual learning in the mechanisms of sight, whereas Talmudic thought is more tashma, gives us the mechanism of understanding via our auditory capacities. So Tachazi, come and see, Rabbi Shimon says. Man debai leminda chochmeta dichuda kadisha, one who wants to know the secret of the holy unification. Istakel beshalhuva desalka migo gechelta, he should look, he should examine upon the flame which emanates from the wick, omigu botzina dedalik, or he actually says you should examine it coming out from the coal or from the container that it's held in. Dehashalhuva lo salka ela kadit achid b'mila gasa, because a flame does not cannot burn unless it's connected to a coarse object. And that is an allusion to the wick. So the flame needs the wick in order for it to burn. Tachazi, come and see. B'shalhuva desalka itrei nahorim. Come and see that with a flame there are two fires within the flame. There are two forms of light that are within the flame. Chad nehora chivara denahir. One is a white type of a light, and that is the more of the yellow light, which the Zohar refers to as a white light. V'chad nehora da'achid ba ukama otichla, and the other is a either black light or a blue light. Hahu nehora, that light chivara, that white light, iu le'ela v'salka ba'orach mishor. That white light is rises up above, and it goes in a straight way in order to receive the chesed, in order to receive the mercy from up above. Utechotoi ahu nehora tichla o ukma deiu karsaya lahu chivar. And underneath it is the blue light or the black light, which is the chariot, which is the seat, so to speak, of the white light. Vahu nehora chivara shari ilave, and that white light rides on top of the blue light. Vitachidu da bedala mehave kol echad, and they're united to become completely in sync and to become completely one. Vahu nehora ukama o gavan tichla deiu letata hu karsaya dikar lahu chivar, and that black light or blue light is like the seat of honor of the white light. And the Zohar is going to explain this concept shortly. Valda raza de tchelta. And on this is an allusion to the tchelet that is in the mitzvah of tzitzit. And the tzitzit has, the tzitzit are the mitzvah of the talit, the small talit, which is worn by males. The mitzvah right now is only white, but it used to be also a blue attached to the tzitzit. Now, the Zohar doesn't expand upon this concept, but he says that the concept of the tzitzit is this unification of the white and the blue. And the blue represents the blue string, which he's going to get to right now. V'hai kursaya tichla ukama di itachad b'milachar lidalka dehumitata, and this blue or black light represents the sphera of malchut, of kingship. And within the sphere of kingship, and the sphere of kingship of Malchut is able to unite with the source of Malchut, because Malchut is the kingship, is the sphera, is the dimension of receiving, and it receives from the other sphirot which are above it. And hopefully, as we go through these lessons, we're going to expand upon these concepts, and there are portions in the Zohar that explain these concepts in greater depth. But the blue light represents the emanation, the sphera of Malchut, and it receives from the white light. And this is the blue or the black. And he says that sometimes this blue or black light could become red. And that is as a result of judgments which are within it, because we know that kingship, a king has the capacity to rule on all matters. So it could be that the ruling could be that it could stem from the place of judgments, and that's what the red light represents. However, the white light, which is above it, is a light which is unchanged. And that's the secret that the verse says, that I am God, I did not change. God is unchanged by the dynamics of what goes on within the lower realms. And the lower realms are what the world, what the emanation of Malchut is in charge of. And when we talk about the lower realms, it's not just this physical world, but every one of the spiritual worlds has within it a sphere of Malchut, and that is the capacity to be within nature. And that's the idea of being within nature. But the above nature is unchanged. And that's the idea of the white light. The hachivara hu tadir, because chesed, because kindness, and the desire to give, and that is a desire of God to bestow and to give and to recreate the world and to re-emanate the world every single second. That is something which is unchanged by the lower worlds. And although there may be a judgment, and the judgment may seem like it's red, and that's how it could change the hues from blue to red, nevertheless, the white remains the same. But this blue light, it changes. It says, sometimes it's blue, and the blue represents the ocean. And underneath the ocean, we know that, or within the ocean, that represents what is unseen to the eye, and this represents the concept of hiding, and which explains to us an aspect of the sphere of Malchut, of kingship, that the sphere of Malchut is the representation, or it's the way godliness is expressed within this world. And on the one hand, it appears like the world is independent in and of itself, but then on the other hand, the sphere of Malchut surrounds this world and sort of like obscures what is beyond it. And that's the analogy of the ocean. When we think about what's in the ocean, we have no idea what's in the ocean. I mean, we haven't even begun to really fully explore what's in the ocean. We know more what's in space than we even know what's in the ocean. And that represents, the idea of the blue represents the guarding, the safeguarding of what is beyond what is seen. And the reason why it's safeguarded, and specifically that's the color blue, and it's actually very interesting because the colors of Tzfat are the light blue, and if you walk around the city of Tzfat, you'll see the light blue all over houses, homes. There's doors that have blue and etc. all over the place, and that represents the safeguarding from what is called the evil eye, or something which will not be able to appreciate what is unseen. And it's very interesting that in the temple, in the tabernacle, there was all the objects in the tabernacle were covered with a blue sort of tarp covering. Each one of them was covered with a blue tarp in order to keep a sort of a negative eye from being able to capture that or to look into what the contents that it's hiding. So the sphere of Malchut represents this hiddenness of what is above it. Now, what's the purpose? What's the concept of the evil eye? The concept of the evil eye is keeping away, fending away the negative forces, which is what Malchut comes in contact with. Because Malchut is a godly emanation, but then it's also the beginning of the potentiality for negativity, and that is called in the words of Kabbalah, it's called klipot. It's called the husks, and the husks represent what is extraneous, and the husks sort of like they're external to what the fruit to the fruit, and they represent the powers of negativity. So he says that the light could sometimes look like it's blue, and that represents the safeguarding of the white, right, and fending away of the negativity. And sometimes it could be red, because sometimes it could actually, the Malchut actually brings down judgment into the world. And sometimes it could be black. And it says about black in Song of Songs, Ani shchora v'na'ava, that I am black but beautiful. And the concept of black is the idea of being completely transformed, to that unified one color. But that unified color of black is a color of transformation, of charcoal, which he's going to explain right now. The Zohar is going to explain. V'hait achid l'toin sitrin. But specifically, the concept of blue, of light blue, is the medium color. and it's in between the black, the transformation of the negativity, and it's and on the other hand, it's the red, which represents the judgment. It's sort of like the taking, not revenge, but taking force in combating negativity, right? The red, and the blue is sort of like in the middle, it's safeguarding, and it's sort of like the medium in between these two levels. And that light is connected to the higher white light. And that is what adorns the higher light. The lower light adorns the higher light, and it is completely unified with the higher light. And this light, this blue light, eats away. And the reason why it's called Tevet in Hebrew is because it comes from the word ochel. Ochel in Hebrew means to eat, to consume. And what does the blue do? The Tevet consumes what is underneath it. And what is underneath it? What's underneath it is the wick, right? And the oil. And it represents the consuming of the negativity, and that represents the tree of life of good and bad, the tree of knowledge, which represents the totality of this world. And therefore, Malchut, it really has the job of transferring the negativity from below to above. And that is called, in Kabbalistic terms, it's called the feminine waters. It's called man. Man is maim nukvin, feminine waters, and it has the job of eating away, of transforming, of consuming what is underneath it. Whatever is underneath it, this blue light consumes it. Because its way is to consume and to burn. Because within it, or underneath it, is where all death comes from. And by consuming it, it consumes negativity, it consumes death and darkness. And with that, the blue is able to burn away all of that. And that white light, which represents the six spheros of the giver, which is from above to below, that is resting upon the blue light, and that is unchanged. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu writes. Moses says that that your God is a consuming God of fire. And the Zohar says, why is that analogy, consuming God of fire, ochla, that he consumes, that he eats? Because ochla vadai, achil v'shatzi kol ma d'shar tachtui. Because it eats, it consumes everything which is underneath it. Valda amar Hashem Elokecha, and that's what it says, Hashem, your God. Not Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem, our God. Moshe does not put himself within the rest of the nation of Israel, of the Bnei Israel over there. He says, Hashem, your God. Why? Because what's the level of Moshe? Level of Moshe begin to Moshe ba'u nehora chivara de le'ela hava, because Moshe was on the level of the white light. De lo shatze velo achil, that the white light does not consume and does not burn, does not purge anything which is underneath it, because that's the level of rachamim, it's the level of bestowing from above to below. Whereas the nation of Israel is the idea of Israel, is the idea of Malchut, and says that God is a consuming light within you. And it's interesting that when the Jewish people traveled in the desert, what went in front of them was the Ark of Covenant. And the Ark of Covenant, as he said, was surrounded by this blue tarp. And that's what went in front of them in the desert. And that's kind of like the analogy, the imagery of that blue light and the nation of Israel coming together with that blue light and consuming what is in the desert. And what is in the desert? Scorpions, snakes, right? All types of other hazardous animals and darkness, etc. And that consuming is what Kabbalistically was done through the travels of the Jewish people in the desert. And that is practically today's lesson. Our traveling in our desert or wherever we travel, it's that travel of the blue light. And as we go through obstacles and as we go through challenges and whatnot, we should realize that on the one hand, we are unfazed and undaunted by any of that. Why? Because there's the power of our white light. And the power of the white light is the power of the soul, which constantly gives a person this vitality. And then below that unifies with the power to be able to contend with challenges, and that's the blue light. And together they form a one holistic person that is able to shed light within their lives and on their environment, and to shed light outwards to everybody around them. So I wish everybody a good day, and we look forward to seeing you next time on live Kabbalah classes.